Good morning. Happy Friday. I am going to get back to posting my podcast/lives earlier in the week, but it's been a busy couple of weeks, which is a good thing. Pretty exciting stuff right now. Good morning. Welcome. Just giving people a few minutes to get signed on here if they're watching live on Instagram or YouTube. Cammie, Jamie, good morning, ladies. We're going to be talking some good stuff today. All right, I'm going to jump right into it. Welcome back to the Fit Body Secrets podcast. My mission is to bring you guys inspiration, motivation, and a ton of tips to help you become your fittest version of yourself. I have a lot of thoughts on today's topic that I thought it's so good to kind of go back to basics of what actually works. And I just feel like there's such this divide in social media with advice around nutrition about like, you shouldn't be avoiding foods and, you should be able to eat whatever you want. And also influencers that are like showcasing you these like mukbangs of them like eating all of this food and they're showing their abs and you're like, man, I want that. And it can just be so sleazy. And while I do want my clients to feel like they can enjoy the foods that they want to have, I think it's also important to understand that building a sustainable fat loss plan does mean you want to make sure you feel really good in the process, and that the method that you're using at the diet you're creating makes it really easy for you to maintain. So today's episode is going to be all about giving you guys the right foods to be eating in the majority of the time, and then the foods that you should be limiting, moderating, avoiding, especially if you have fat loss focus goals right now. And I'm going to start by saying this to start, okay? I want you to remember that fat loss should be a temporary phase in your life, right? So when you are in a calorie deficit for fat loss, you are living on a tighter budget with your food. And it's funny because a lot of people are like, I just don't want to think about calories. That's why, because nobody wants to be on a tight budget, right? If you get your paycheck slashed in half and you have a tighter budget, it sucks when you can't go get your nails done and you can't go get your hair done and you can't afford your massage anymore, right? Because you're having to live on a tighter budget. It's the exact same thing with fat loss, which is why it's so important to make sure you aren't drastically slashing calories and you actually are trying to do it in the least restrictive way as possible, okay? But you have to realize that fat loss, when you have a tighter calorie budget, it's just like when you have a tighter money budget. You have to have a little bit of strategy. You have to be planning on how you are going to be spending your calories. There is no way around that, all right? So, and I'm just going to sip on my coffee while I'm doing this, all right? So the main thing is you have to understand you need strategy. Now, I'm not saying that you can't enjoy having the more indulgent foods. You just have to understand that just like with your money budget, if you decide to spend a little bit of money when you're on a tight budget on something more indulgent, like getting your nails done, it's probably going to take a hit in your bank account and you might be having to pull back somewhere else, right? So it's so important for you guys to understand that we need to find balance. And the balance really needs to come down to knowing that fat loss should be something that you are all in on for a temporary phase of your life. And we'll talk a little bit more about how I'm going to be doing a couple of episodes on fat loss in general. But I do want to talk a little bit about how to build that out, especially because if you're hearing that and you're like, but man, Cheryl, I have like 50 pounds to lose. That can feel like it's going to be a grind, right? And I will talk about how to take intentional breaks and such like that. But today I want to get down to the meat of building a fat loss strategy that actually works, which is coming down to what your diet should look like, okay? So why does this matter? Obviously, I mentioned we have to watch where we're getting our calories from because we don't want to be consuming too many calories, but how you feel matters, right? So like you need to feel good. You need to feel regulated in a fat loss phase. The goal is to keep your energy up and your appetite regulated. If those two things are in check, you are going to be in the sweet spot for fat loss. You also need to be really thinking about controlling the sources of your calories. And I'm going to be 100% dirt honest with you guys because I am always dirt honest with you guys. You need to control where your calories are coming from the majority of the time. And I say that to you because I know you might be one of those people that likes to go with the flow and do what everybody else is doing. And maybe you have kids and maybe you have other things going on. But when you are in a fat loss phase, you don't want your calorie intake to be dictated by what other people are eating, okay? Because guess what? Other people aren't in a fat loss phase and they don't care about how many calories they're spending. So you need to be more intentional about your food. I'm not telling you that you can't still go out to eat and still do social things with your family, but the more control you have over the variables in your diet, the better you are going to feel. Okay. This is why a lot of people don't like to eat out a lot when they're in a fat loss phase, because it's like, man, the calories just are not worth it. Not to mention the money's not worth it. And we can talk more about, this in incoming episodes about how maybe, looking at different ways to, just connect with your family. That's not just always around the food. I think sometimes we get into this mindset. If you've been someone that's always focused on food as a place of social gatherings, that the food becomes the focus when you don't really have to be eating the same thing as everybody else to honestly be having a good time. It's all up here. Okay. It's all about there. All right. So let's get into this. All right. The goal here is making sure that you're feeling really good in a fat loss phase, that it's a lot easier for you to control your calories, and that you are also getting enough nutrients. Okay. So yesterday I taught a masterclass on macros, and I really broke down why it's not just calories that matter. Okay. So I could be eating 1,200 calories from nothing but cookies and candy and milkshakes, right? I'm not going to feel very good. I'm not going to be getting enough nutrients. Probably going to end up looking very skinny fat. Okay. So you need to be getting in enough nutrients that your body's getting the right things to feel good, especially if you're someone that deals with any kind of like hormone or metabolic issues. You can't focus on calories alone. And the funny thing is this happened to me in reverse. When I first started my calorie counting journey when I was 19 years old, I wasn't even really thinking about macros at all. It was more so like I had this food list and I knew I needed to have some protein and some carbs at a meal. And I started actually eating a high protein diet naturally because I realized that, wow, I could have like way more tuna or way more chicken than I can peanut butter. So I'm going to eat more of that and less of the peanut butter because I know I can get more volume. All right. But we also need to make sure we're getting enough fat. So you want to make sure you're getting enough nutrients. You can't just focus on calories alone. The other reason this really matters is I find that if you are eating the right foods, it makes it so much easier for you to not mistrack things. So when I have a client who I know is not making progress and it's because they're not tracking everything, it's not the chicken and the rice and the broccoli and the avocado that they're not tracking accurately. Usually it's they grabbed a handful of chips or a couple of bites of their kids' mac and cheese or a couple of pieces of dark chocolate or whatever that they decide to have that they're forgetting to track because it was just like one little thing. The lick of the brownie batter, like all of that stuff ends up adding up. But if you're focusing on this stuff, it actually makes tracking a lot easier. And that's also something that I talked about yesterday in the masterclass. If you want the replay from the masterclass, just shoot me over a message. There will be a place to contact me in the show notes. Sorry, my cat just loves to come up here and likes to be the show or the star of the show when I'm on my podcast episode. And it drives me absolutely crazy because he'll be doing his own thing all day. And then the second I start talking to my computer, he's got to come up here and be all up in my business. Okay. So let's get into it. And I'm going to start by talking about the best foods for fat loss. And the goal of this list is to think, I want you to think these are the foods that you should be seeing the majority of the time. Like when you go to the grocery store, these are the things that are like abundant in your cart. When you're building your meals, these are the things you see the most of on your plate. This is the stuff that you should be eating a lot of. And this is actually whether you're in fat loss or in maintenance, your diet should start here. This in particular is just going to make it a lot easier for you to lose body fat because these foods are also very hard to overeat. Okay. Starting off first with lean proteins. Okay. I'm also going to put a little plug here that the way I built out this list is using my Fit Body 5. Okay. Your meal should have protein, a lean protein, some source of produce, fruit or vegetable, complex carbs. So something with some fiber in it, a little bit of fat. Today, I'm going to be talking about fat with flavor, and then a condiment, something to add flavor to your meal. So 5 things make a Fit Body 5 meal, makes it super easy for you to make sure that you are covering the basics without actually even having to look at numbers. Okay. But we're going to start with number 1, which is lean proteins. I think we often go to just like white fish and chicken breast, which is great. Those are really good sources of lean proteins, but you got to dress them up. And that's why the other things matter too. All of your lean proteins, in fact, need to be dressed up. You got to be able to season things, add flavor to them, but this should be more abundant in your diet. So we've got lean proteins. Yes, I mentioned chicken and whitefish, but it's also things like non-fat Greek yogurt and cottage cheese and whey protein, and even things like extra lean ground beef, top sirloin steak, fat-free or low-fat dairy products, deli turkey and ham, other things that actually have a little bit of flavor already in them. These you can eat in abundance. It's very hard to overeat these foods. Like if you're hungry and you're like, I need to grab something, grab some deli turkey. You're very likely to overdo your calories if you grab a few rolls of deli turkey, right? You could probably even eyeball that pretty easier. It's a lot less likely that you're going to overeat that rather than going into the pantry and getting some Cheetos. Okay. So you want lots of lean proteins. And I know you're thinking, but a lot of those are bland. Like I said, we're going to get into dressing them up later, but you should be having a ton of low fat proteins. All of your meals should have some kind of low fat protein. In fact, your snacks should likely also always have some low fat protein because it's going to keep you more satiated. Okay. Next one, often overlooked, okay, is produce. All right. Your meals should have produce in them, fruits, vegetables, primarily vegetables at your main meals. Okay. This is going to add bulk to your meal. It's going to add volume to your meal. It's going to help keep your stomach digestion regular. So it could be things like right now it's summertime. Salads are super satiating right now. I've been making like a couple of different salad rotations, but your plate should have vegetables on it. In a fat loss phase, I'm making big ass salads every day. Okay. I'm like, let's double down on the big ass salads. Let's make sure I feel really full with what I'm eating. Okay. So having a big bowl of veggies, if you're someone that's like, but my stomach gets upset when I eat vegetables, that's likely because you have spent your entire life not eating vegetables. And it's going to cause a little bit of stomach upset when you first start adding them in. So maybe add in portions small, with the goal being to slowly increase your portions. In fact, I can still remember when I first started adding in vegetables because my family knew that I was adding in vegetables because I was the girl. Oh my God, it's gonna make y'all laugh. I was the girl that would fucking crop dust. I would be walking and like the gas would just like bleed out a little bit. And my dad would be like, Cheryl, did you just fart? And I'm like, no. And they fucking knew it was me. And I knew it was me. And I'm like, but that would happen when I first started adding vegetables. Now, I'm not going to lie, my shit don't stink. All right. My shit don't stink. My body digests all of my vegetables just fine. But you want to have lots of vegetables in your meals and also fruit. So like some people don't want to have vegetables in the morning. Maybe your breakfast doesn't really look complementary with having a side of zucchini, right? Maybe you're having oats. So add some fruit, add some berries, add some, kiwi, add some different things to add some nutrients from fruits and vegetables to that meal. Okay. So I've never been the girl that's putting spinach in my shakes. I'm sorry. That's just not me. I know people that do that, just not me. And I know that doesn't have any taste to it, but there's just something weird about mixing sweet with vegetables. It just doesn't do well for me. I've never been the girl that can do the whole cauliflower oats and all that shit. Nope, not me. Although I do remember at one point trying the whole adding cauliflower to a smoothie because it was supposed to add thickness. And I don't remember actually having any taste about that. I don't think I'd ever do it again. I just don't. I get plenty of vegetables at my main meal. So produce is number 2. Okay. We will talk about dressing this stuff up later on. Number 3 is lots of complex carbohydrates. All right. When I talk about complex carbs, we're looking for carbs that have fiber in them. All right. So we're looking at things like whole grains. So whole grain bread, whole grain wraps, whole grain pitas. And if even better, if you can find like the light variety. I don't really love the high fiber ones because they do have a lot of that fake fiber, but in a fat loss phase, if that's what you like, we're going to end up just kind of, as you're going out of fat loss, probably changing that over to a whole grain, but those can be great strategic things to add in, but we want to have a lot of high fiber foods. Okay. Or high fiber whole grains. Things like popcorn are actually great high fiber complex carbs. Whole grain cereal often gets over or underrated, but it's like high in volume and does give your body some fiber, along with things like that maybe aren't so high fiber or complex, but do have more volume to them, like rice cakes. Okay, so rice cakes are great because you can dress them up. I really love the chocolate rice cakes, and like one rice cake is like 10 or 11 carbs. I think the chocolate ones are probably the highest, and those are 12. I think actually one plain rice cake is like 5 or 6 grams. But yeah, like those are great because you can dress those up. All right. So we want to look at different things there. And then the next thing that we're talking about is where are we getting our fats from? I already mentioned that in a fat loss phase, you want to keep your proteins pretty lean because you want to be able to add fats. It makes it a lot easier for you to control your calorie intake when you aren't getting fats from multiple sources. Fats are the most caloric food that you eat. Okay, so calories per gram for fats are 9. So every gram of fat you eat, you're getting 9 calories, whereas protein and carbs are only 4. So when I'm adding fats that have flavor. Okay, so in a fat loss phase, yes, I am saving my fats for things like chocolate and nut butter and avocado and things that actually I want to see on my plate and be able to taste. All right. Yes, okay, oil and butter does add some flavor to your meals, but honestly, I am going to sacrifice that in a fat loss phase because I want to be able to have those things that do have a little bit more to them. You know what I'm talking about. So also like this makes it easy when you go out to eat. If you're choosing a lean protein, it makes it a lot easier for you to control calories when you're eating out. In fact, if you're eating this way when you're eating out, you're winning. Okay, so fats with flavor. The next thing is low calorie condiments. This is where I'm going to be talking about making the best of your diet. All right. So the thing that you have to master in a fat loss phase is how to actually build meals that taste as close to what you really want as possible while keeping calories low. All right. So, like, you crave Italian food. So, how can we make a lower calorie Italian dish, right? Maybe it's pizza. I can take a low calorie pita and I can add some marinara sauce and some low fat cheese and some turkey pepperoni. And no, it's not pizza, but guess what? I can have it on a Tuesday night and still be in a calorie deficit, right? It's looking at things like that. So we want lots of low calorie condiments. Some of my favorite ones, and I like to have sweet and savory here because we have to remember sweets do require condiments. But things like marinara sauce, salsa. I love a lot of the different low calorie dressings. Love the Bolthouse Farms brand because I like creamy dressings. I love their cilantro avocado dressing. It's really good on any kind of like a taco bowl, which we're going to talk about turning these into actual meals and snacks in a second. Soy sauce is another good one. Low calorie, sugar-free, barbecue sauce, ketchup, all of those things. And even looking at ways to replace condiments with lower calorie options. So like if you use mayo in tuna salad, try using a mixture of Greek yogurt and a little bit of lemon juice and a little bit of mustard. You have to get creative. Replacing peanut butter with powdered peanut butter. These are just easy swaps to help you make it easier to put fat loss on autopilot. Okay. Again, we're not looking for the permanent diet switches. Some of these might become new norm for you, which is fine. But other times it's just like, okay, temporarily, I'm cutting these out, right? If you normally eat a lot of eggs, maybe you're going to eggs and egg whites to save a little bit of calories there. We're looking at ways that we can really make meals that are going to have the same volume or maybe even a little bit more volume with less calories. Okay. The last part that I want to talk about when we're talking about the best foods for fat loss is when you are reading labels on packaged foods, because we're going to talk about things to limit or avoid. If you're somebody that does eat a lot of packaged foods, try and look for single macro foods and, always looking at the serving size and being realistic about what a serving size looks like to you and would feel satiating to you. But looking for single macro foods is going to help you a ton with being in a fat loss phase. If you are doing this, and this is like your food list, you can now create a ton of different meals and snacks and make it so much easier for you to create a calorie deficit. Okay. So, which is the goal, right? If you normally reach for Cheetos, if you simply say, you know what, I'm going to choose popcorn, you could have the same volume for like a third of the calories, right? So it's like, that's the stuff that you have to be thinking about when you're in a calorie deficit. A lot of women don't do that. They just focus on the numbers and they're like, okay, well, I'm just going to eat less of this food. And that's why you don't get anywhere. In fact, this is why I don't love the GLP-1 craze, because a lot of that's what they're doing. They're just like not changing their diet and they're just eating less of these high calorie foods. And that's why it's not sustainable. Okay. And they're not getting enough nutrients. What I love to do with all of this stuff that I just mentioned here is also learn how to put meals and snacks together with this stuff. Guys, protein powder and like oat flour and stuff like that, you can make a lot of high volume replicas of things like cookies and brownies and muffins. In fact, I have like a super low calorie freaking pancake that I've been making almost every day. And when you learn how to make these just like simple little recipes that take you like 2 or 3 minutes, now you no longer need to spend the calories on the really expensive thing, right? So we want to make sure that we're getting a lot of those foods in and looking at different combinations of things. Like, yeah, cottage cheese on its own might sound really bland to you, but if you like blend it up and then you like add some like Parmesan cheese to it and you add a little bit of garlic powder and then you maybe put it over some like spiralized zucchini with some chicken, you have like this great big Alfredo dish, right? There's things you can do with it. There's so many things that you can do that you just need to experiment. When you are in a calorie deficit, you are literally retraining your brain how to build meals. And it's also why actually sometimes coming out of a calorie deficit can be hard if you've spent a long time in one, because you've gotten so trained to eat this way that it's almost like it takes time to kind of slowly rebuild trust in reversing some of the things you've done. So on the sweet end of things, I didn't mention this, but for like your condiments, things like sugar-free maple syrup or stevia, sucralose. A lot of people are avoiding, sugar-free things because they think that they're like freaking going to kill them. And there's nothing wrong with anything with sugar-free sucralose or Splenda or any of that stuff. It's not hurting your gut. It's not hurting your brain. It's all just social media, freaking marketing people. And it's just whatever. Like right now I'm drinking my coffee with Fairlife. I love the Fairlife milk. I've been on this kick since like February. And I use the sugar-free syrups. I can make all kinds of fun coffee beverages. My Ninja Creamy at night. I can have ice cream every single night, right? I could totally have real ice cream every single night, but I probably would get fat, right? So I've taken some of the things from when my period of time in a calorie deficit and kept them on even in maintenance. Okay. So all of this stuff to tell you that this is what your diet should look like. These are the foods that you should have in your diet all the time if you are in a fat loss. And if you are in maintenance, a lot of these foods will still be in your diet. This is still the foundation of your diet the majority of the time. Now, we're going to flip gears and we're going to talk about, this is not going to take me so long because I want to talk more about what you should be having. The foods that you want to avoid or limit. And I say avoid or limit because it depends on your personality, right? So like for me, I have no problem avoiding foods. It's not that because I don't feel restricted by that. When I make the decision to I don't eat fried food. I don't eat fried food. I can't remember the last time I had anything fried. Now, if somebody like told me that I had to eat something fried, I would eat it. I'm not going to freak out about it, but I just don't typically gravitate towards looking for something fried. I don't really crave French fries. I don't really crave those things. In fact, I'm going to be honest with you, the less you eat these foods, you don't crave them. If you're building your diet off of the list I gave you before, you won't even miss these foods. It won't feel like you have to have them. The longer you go without them, the longer you actually think you need them. Even to this day, when I have something like a cookie, I think back to how much power those things used to have over me. And I'm like, it doesn't even do it like it used to. Like it used to feel like, oh my God, I just have to have more of this. And now I'm like, I'm still hungry. Like it didn't satisfy me, but I actually don't need more of that. I just want more food in general because that portion was so small. Okay. So we're going to go over the things that you want to avoid and limit. Now, some of these things I do also enjoy and I do have to limit them. Okay. Number one is high fat meats. High fat meats are, so when I was eating paleo, oh God, back in the day, man, I would have like sausage for breakfast and wouldn't even think about it. Sausage and eggs, like no carbs, but sausage and eggs for breakfast, right? Like I would literally be smashing 1,000 calories and not even realize it. Okay. But we want to watch out for the high fat meats. So pepperoni, red meat that's high in fats, like eggs with the yolks, right? We want to watch out for that. It's not saying you can't have these things. Ribeye steaks, those are all great, but they're also going to eat up a lot of your calories in a portion where if I could literally just make a switch from high fat to low fat and I'm saving calories without eating less. Okay. So high fat meats, along with like high fat or full fat cheeses is another one. Obviously, yes, cheese adds a lot of flavor, but my recommendation is to keep it out while you're in a fat loss phase, or adding a hard cheese because you typically can use a little bit less of it. So like Parmesan is a great example. A little bit goes a long way. So even though you're adding it in, you probably aren't adding that much in. Okay. Um, Mixed macro snacks. All right. This is things like your, I should have just put a whole thing of your head, like combination foods, but that's really what you're watching out for right now is combination foods. And this is things like goldfish, tortilla chips, chips in general, anything that's going to have carbs and fats in it, because most of the time those foods are very small in portions for the amount of calories you're consuming. Like it's like 7 tortilla chips is 120 calories or 140 calories. You're like, oh shit, I could have like just very easily had, a freaking whole bowl of oatmeal. I could have had 2 or 3 corn tortillas for those 7 chips, right? Because of the oil that they add to it. Chips and cookies, or like I already mentioned chips, but cookies and desserts and stuff like that. This is where when people are telling me that I need to cut out sugar, I need to cut out processed foods, there's nothing wrong with processed foods or these kinds of processed snacks that are mixed in macros. However, when you cut them out or you limit them, you are making it a lot easier on yourself to control calorie intake. So these should be like special foods. And when I say special, not because they hold this idol in your life, but because you're sprinkling them in a little bit, right? It's like, I want to have, so like I make my Ninja Creamy, I might add a few like cookies in with that, or something along the lines, or I want to have some yogurt and I'm going to add a couple of, crushed up Oreos to it. I'm sprinkling them in if I'm having them because they're very dense in calories. A big one here, protein bars. Okay. I don't think protein bars are great in a fat loss phase. It's a lot of calories in a very small portion. Now, are they good in a pinch? Yeah. Like you're out and about and you're hungry. It's a calorie controlled way to get something quick, but they never filled me up. And I always felt like I needed something after the protein bar. So whenever I have a protein bar, I normally have to pair it with a fruit. Like I need something afterwards. Like I need that like refreshing. I don't know what it is about the protein bar itself, but I need something refreshing to follow it up. So like I'll have like a protein bar and a diet soda, or a protein bar and an apple. Like I need to have something refreshing afterwards. I kind of already mentioned this, but processed foods in general. And this comes down to things like, I already mentioned like the mixed macro snacks, but it's also things like people that still rely on like rice-a-roni and the like the side dishes, macaroni and cheese and stuff like that, where you can't really control where the calories are coming from. So you end up with this like small portion of food and you're just not full. I would not be eating a lot of this stuff. If you're cooking it for your family, it's very easy for you not to eat that and choose something that doesn't require a ton of cooking. You're better off just, if you guys are making burgers and macaroni and cheese, like having the burger in a bun and then obviously making a salad to go with it, right? You're going to be better off that way. Breaded foods is something else that I watch out for. It's not saying that you can't have them. It's just more calories in something that like doesn't need to have the extra calories. We're looking for ways to pull back on calories. We can use those calories for other things. I would much rather have my chicken grilled than breaded and take the extra 120 calories and have a snack. Like that's how I'm thinking in a fat loss phase, and how you should be thinking in a fat loss phase. High fat sauces and dressings. This is a big one. That's also why I go back to my condiments. Just looking out for like the sauces that are like, I'll see people using a buffalo sauce that's like got oil in it. And I'm like, just switch to freaking Frank's Red Hot sauce. You're literally getting 120 calories from this sauce. It's like not doing anything for you. Full fat ranch dressing. Yeah, it's like, it tastes good, but like, is it really worth the calories? Like, you have to think about where you're at. Adding oil and butter. I'm a big cooking spray girl. Just cooking spray. But all of this is stuff that you want to really limit and avoid. If you are also avoiding these things, look at what else you're removing. Okay. You're removing the things that likely are holding you back from staying consistent. If you're not eating these foods, you're not going to the pantry and grabbing a handful of chips because you're not eating those foods. It makes your food decisions, when you have less food choices, you have less food decisions. And that's why I do think that this can be very helpful in a fat loss phase. You have to be in the mindset though of like, you want to change. All of this advice I gave you today does not matter if you are not in a place of like, I really want to change. I really want to see results. If you want to see results, you want to be intentional with your food. The goal is to be smarter with how you're spending your calories. And then the cool thing about this is you get to your goal. This is where we go back to what I said at the beginning. The influencers are showcasing you. Oh, it feels so good to be able to have like this. And they're like showing you their abs and they're like eating pizza or whatever. Like when you get out of the deficit and you're no longer living on a limited amount of calories, you can be more flexible. It's not saying that those foods now become the norm back in your diet, but you do have a little bit more flexibility to be able to afford a little bit more of that stuff. But you got to get there first. And kind of ending on this note is knowing that it's also okay to realize that every single day does not need to be perfect, right? So what I'm telling you is how the diet should look the majority of the time. We're in the middle of summer and next weekend's 4th of July. And maybe you're thinking that you want to be able to enjoy a burger and not have to worry about it, right? Maybe you're packing some of like the lower calorie snacks, but you're also enjoying a little bit of that stuff. Every day does not have to look like this. The majority of your days do, okay? You can still be able to be in a deficit and not have perfect days. So if you're being in that place, or if you're in that place where you know you want to have a splurge, it's okay to sprinkle in some splurges. They're not cheat meals. It's just knowing that like today I'm being more intentional about just enjoying the experience and not stressing about my calories and my macros. I'm going to be over a little bit. The majority of my diet is giving me what I want. And if you are that person who's like, yeah, I want to be able to splurge a little bit, what I will tell you is this. Try and create some traction first. I think that one of the biggest motivators to stay on track is actually seeing a return from the work that you're doing. So I think that in the beginning, if you can give yourself like 2 or 3 weeks of being like, all right, I'm going to really be all in on this deficit and doing it in a way where it feels like you're getting enough food to where you don't feel like you're at the tipping point at the end of that. And then being like, all right, okay, now I'm going to like just have a day and enjoy myself a little bit. It's not splurge day, get everything in. It's like, you know what, maybe this morning, instead of having egg whites and toast, I'm going to go out and I'm going to get a bagel sandwich. Or, you know what, it's a Saturday night and I really just want to have sushi. Okay, you're making that intentional decision to be able to just be okay with it. But I think that the reason why I mentioned building some traction first is because it actually makes it a lot easier for you to keep seeing momentum happen or keep seeing progress beyond that. I think when you kind of start changing and you let things kind of come in too quickly, it makes it really hard to build that momentum because you're still kind of trying to retrain your brain. And like I mentioned in the beginning, is the less you eat the foods that are on the avoid limit list, the less you crave them. I don't crave a lot of those foods. And if you're eating a really high quality diet, being in a deficit is so much easier, especially because you can also diet on higher calories. That is the ultimate goal, is getting as much nutrition as possible, because that's going to keep your hormones healthy, your metabolism healthy, and keep you feeling good in the process. So hopefully today's episode was helpful for you. If you did get any value out of this, or you are someone looking to dial in your nutrition to lose body fat, improve your performance in the gym, or just honestly optimize your health for living longevity. You want to maybe you're a woman and you're in that like mid 30s, 40s, 50s, and you're like, I just really want to be able to age gracefully. Feel free to reach out to me, DM me. Always open to a chat. There is going to be a link in the show notes for a clarity call. Always offer those for free, no charge. But until the next episode, I will see you all later. Bye.